when I record to my computer, I get higher resolution recordings than if I record. So I'm going to try to. The last few haven't been recorded to my computer. They've been recorded to the cloud, and then I've downloaded them because it takes a really long time to download. You know, once it's recorded, to sort of generate the recording, which sounds silly, but essentially, and it's probably my imagination that it's lower resolution. Anyway, it always takes a long time, and I always know that the next day I have to, you know, I had to drive to Gallup, and there was one day where I purposely left my laptop. It was packed up and everything in my backpack and it was ready to go, but I thought, oh, I'll just leave it here because I'm going to stop off for coffee in the morning on my way down there, and I completely left my backpack here. I got all the way down to Gallup and didn't have my laptop with me, so I had to use theirs, which luckily I could do some work online, but I just was kind of lost the whole day. Like, this is worthless. So here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and share the image real quick. I can figure out, there we go. And I don't see that over here.
What is this?
Do that there. And I don't know.
Oh, pretty.
So this is a really terrible photo. It's a cool little spot, but it's a really terrible photo. I took this photo, I'm pretty sure in the 90s at some point, when I was using a film camera, and I think the camera broke and it sat in a box in the heat with the film in it for a really long time. So it's kind of overexposed. And it could just be because it was a point and click camera. But it's a cool, I like, you know, like, it's a cool little scene. Let me see if I can make it. No, I guess, oh, I guess I have to click on the thing. There we go. It's a cool little scene. I kind of like the, you know, this doorway. I thought that was kind of neat. Now, I'm going to show you my sketch really quick because I changed this. Now, this is not the best sketch. I noticed, and part of it is the angle I took the camera and I couldn't quite get it to shift without looking weird. This looks really slanted, but that's okay. It's really, I'm just, you know, like I said, it's a thumbnail sketch. Well, I mean, it's not the size of a thumbnail, but it's a small sketch to kind of work out some of the things. So if you'll see that I changed it because in this actual place, the doors are square doors. They're like normal doors. They're narrower than normal, but they're like normal shaped doors, and they open inward. So they're just regular doors that close up against this arch, which I thought was weird. So I kind of changed them to you know, actual arched doors because I thought that would be a little more interesting. So you know, this is just kind of a weird thing. But let's see. There we go. Why is this not? Can you guys see this little bar down here that says mute, stop video, security, blah, all that stuff, or is that just me?
Nope, I can't see it.
I can't see it.
Okay, the controls for Zoom were kind of in the way, and I thought it might be. I thought it might be. Blocking part of it. Not that there's anything down here on the bottom of the photo, but so let me go back. Let me kind of go to what am I looking for? Boy, it's been a while since I've done something with Photoshop. Couldn't remember what I was doing there. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little smaller so we can, cancel. So we can kind of, I'm not going to zoom out all the, well, it's a little small, but you get the gist. I want to talk a little bit for a second about, that's pretty close, about what I kind of did. Now, I can't remember. I think that this wall is actually at the same level as this kind of roof line here. And I really softened this curve right here. I felt like I wanted it a little softer, like real Adobe. You know, this is a fairly new house. or it was when I took the picture. And I kind of like the idea. You can see that there's actually a shadow on this whole front. But I thought it was kind of, it'd be kind of interesting if maybe this wall back here was a little taller and went and extended past this entry. Like, I don't know why it would do that, but I just thought it was interesting. And then we'd have this cool kind of interesting cast shadow along the front of this. And then this little bit here would be in light, kind of in sunlight. I didn't really do a whole, I didn't do a whole lot of shading on this tree because I kind of know what I'm going to do, but I did make a few, or not tree, whatever this evergreen bush, I forget the name of it. And it doesn't matter because I'm probably going to make it a different plant altogether. I'm thinking about maybe making it look like honeysuckle or something. I don't know, with some big, kind of orange flowers in there. I thought that might be kind of fun to add a little color in here. But I kind of know, this is kind of my shorthand for, oh yeah, there's a bush here, or a tree or something. And I thought it was interesting, like here, there's some light bouncing off the walkway here, and hitting this pot. So this isn't really that dark. You can see it's not at all. Well, I mean, it's a white pot in the photo. I kind of changed the shape. I was having trouble drawing that exactly like that. And I thought, well, why am I struggling with that? I'll just make it look like a different kind of pot because it's my, it's my painting. It doesn't have to be, again, we're just kind of using this as inspiration. And I don't, I avoided the doormat that's underneath, for some reason, underneath the plant. But I liked how this light was bouncing back against the wall here, and you were getting this extreme light bouncing back and lighting up some of this stuff. Even on this side of the pot, you're getting a little bit of light bouncing back and illuminating that. So there's a bit of a shadow, which I kind of made a note of it in my head, but it's fairly dark back here behind this pot, which I kind of alluded to in some spots, but really I just liked the arch shape of the door, and I liked the let me make sure she's having trouble still. Okay, I did. I couldn't remember if I responded to her last email, and I did. Okay, or text. And so also, I can't remember. I think this is actually a pine tree back here, if I remember right. That's behind this bush. So like some of this is a bush on the backside, and then there's a pine tree. I just kind of simplified it and made it this kind of tree shape back in here in the background. So that's how I kind of modified it. I wanted, I liked this kind of shape that's in the door, these squares, but I wanted it to be an actual arched door and look a little more, not vintage. I don't know. That's not really the word I'm looking for there, but you kind of get what you know what I'm saying. Kind of an older style where this is a newer construction. It was built I think it was, guys, was this in Albuquerque? I think this was in the Northeast Heights of Albuquerque. And I think I just liked it. And I think it was just some house I was driving by, and I snuck up to the front of their door and took a picture. Okay, so Anne obviously did it with a film camera and let the film get too hot. So I'm going to go back to, let me click on this one. I'm going to go back to, to this and make that bigger so you guys can sketch that. And I'm going to sketch it real quick too. because I have not done that. I got sidetracked working on this other painting. So hopefully I have not bored you guys to death. And yeah. Oh, something to kind of keep in mind is this. You'll notice there's quite, because I'm of where the camera is, you know, this top of the wall is actually not parallel with the bottom of the wall. I mean, obviously it is in real life, but because we're seeing this perspective, you know, pay attention to kind of the angle that you've got down here. It's kind of a steep angle coming up to the corner, and then this one is kind of a less steep angle coming down. So kind of keep that in mind when sketching this in. And one thing that helps me is I kind of drew this first, and then came all the way down with a line to where I felt like the front was going to be. And then I pulled this line up. So I didn't draw any of this stuff first. So that might help you. It's helpful to kind of draw the, you know, it's like drawing a figure of a person. Sometimes it's helpful to kind of imagine where their, you know, their skeleton is to kind of figure out how their body's going to work. Oh, and same with this other, you know, where this wall meets up with this, I did the same thing. You can kind of make out the corner right in there. There's a line going up. It's kind of fun to practice, you know, single point perspective, because that's really what we're doing here. Okay, so and don't worry if you struggle a little bit with the perspective. I you know, everybody does. You know, even me. You know, my mom always struggled with perspective as well. In fact, she would kind of get me to help her sometimes, and I struggle with perspective. There's a pretty well-known. Oh, let's see. Participants. Good deal. So anyway, it's not uncommon to kind of struggle a little bit with perspective and. Hey, Becky.
Hello.
You made it.
Well, it's going to be very, very small. At least I can hear you.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, and with the recording, with the recording, it'll hopefully help. You can go back and rewatch it if need be.
Yeah, I'll have to go over to my daughter's house. I'll have to go over to my daughter's house because it takes about 7 hours to download one of those recordings at my house.
Oh my gosh.
So, but I'm hoping it'll go faster at my daughter's house.
Yeah. Well, the internet here at Artifacts is pretty quick. You can always come here and download it if need be.
Yeah, if I ever get to town.
Well, yeah, that's the other.
So, okay.
That's the other kicker. All right, so that's kind of how I want. So we're just sketching the. We're currently just kind of sketching the image that we're gonna do tonight.
Okay. I will get started with that then.
I don't know. Awesome. And thanks for texting me and letting me know that you were waiting for me to let you in. I got sidetracked and didn't notice that.
Well, I waited for a while and then it's like, he probably is not paying any attention.
Well, and when the computer's on share screen mode, it doesn't display. I have to remember to click the little participants button so it pops up and then it'll notify me.
Right.
It doesn't do
I
it.
figured there was something.
Yeah. All right, that seems all right. real quickly, I'm going to show you before I want to just I know we're all sketching this, so I'll come back to this, but I really quickly want to just kind of show you. I don't know if you can kind of, yeah, you can kind of see that. So you can see where I've it's kind of a weird angle. There we go. You can see where I've you know, I sketched this in and it still kind of feels like it's leaning a little bit. Maybe it needs to come out that way. It could be the angle that the camera's at too. But you can see I sketched this in all the way. In fact, I just recently erased it there, but I kind of wanted to show you that you know, same with over here. If you look closely, you can kind of see that I have lines there, and there's a line that goes all the way up where I've started. You know, where I blocked that in first, and then now I've started kind of figuring that out. And I still need to kind of work on this arch a little bit. This side is a little wonky, but that's okay. But I wanted you to kind of see this sketch in progress while I was working on it. So we'll go back to the image again. I think I also made these doors a little bit wider than the real ones, but that's okay. I kind of like that too.
Michael, I noticed on your sketch that you have your top one is not square. Are you gonna do it square? Are you gonna do it kind of rounded like that?
No, I'm gonna round it off.
Or
I
does
didn't
it matter?
Yeah, these, I mean, you can do it however you want, but I'm gonna, like, this is a newer constructed house. It was built in like the late 80s, early 90s. And so these are actually two square doors that were fit into this archway. I didn't really care for that, so I decided to make them actually arched doors because I find that a little more interesting. I mean, we could even make them arched gates instead of this being like into a house. It could be a gateway into another garden or something. There's all sorts of possibilities with this. We could make 12 paintings that would all be slightly different from this same kind of shape. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, that would have been a really good idea, was to make them into gates. And you could see through them. Anyway, I'm gonna do the kind of arched top that kind of comes along. Well, here you've got it. Let's see. Yeah, kind of like my sketch. I arch these. So I made the doors actually follow those arches a little more instead of being square like this. I also added I made this wall over here taller, so it comes in back here, and actually there's a I made a cast shadow that kind of comes along at this angle here, so this would be out in the light. So I also kind of moved the sun a little bit. And I think I made this bush bigger or smaller or something. I guess that's all just the same bush. It's probably it's probably another bush now that I think about it, just the same, whatever this evergreen bush, I can't remember what these are called. There's probably another one growing on the side of the other side of that wall, I think is where all this growth is coming from. It kind of looked like a pine tree when it was really little, but shows you how much I looked at this photo carefully. Yeah, so I kind of changed that up as well, that whole. But yes, to overly complicate the answer to your question, I'm arching those up there as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I didn't mean to make that overly complicated. But, and I'm kind of changing up now that I've gotten into it a little bit. Kind of, I think, changing up the construction of this door a little bit. I'll show you guys when we. Make that kick plate a little thicker.
Well, let us see it before we make our sketch.
Okay. Stop the share. So I've kind of decided to make this kind of a more solid, like these are boards with an inset board in here. So instead of just having that little bit of framing that's done, I've kind of taken that idea, but I'm making it a little more substantial door, kind of an older looking door. So there's a little panel inside, more like a cabinet door And then I've got this other little kind of inset. But essentially there's, you know, this is a board. This is probably multiple boards, but there's a curved bit that's carved here that meets up with this straight bit. Then there's this straight, you know, kind of timber here for that half of the door, and then a fairly substantial kick plate. I'm trying to decide if I think I want this to go all the way down like that, but there's a fairly good sized kind of kick plate down there as well. So you can kind of see how I'm thinking about that. So while I think it's just like a more traditional door kind of design versus what they've done is they've taken a you know, kind of a normal door, and they've just put some framing bits, some trim bits on it to kind of mimic this, but it's not really. So we'll do the, you know, I'll do the same. I'll mirror this on the other side. So I have this, you know, fairly sizable timber coming down, and then I'll have this curved bit of wood that comes down, and in all likelihood it's made up of multiple pieces of wood, but that's okay. Let's see, kind of, so you can kind of see, and then that comes across there. There's a board that comes across there, and a board that comes across there, and then this interior board has kind of a relief, or you know, there's a relief, and then this kind of, yeah, sticks out a little bit higher. Very similar to a cabinet door, but you know, that's kind of the idea I was going for. And then I like doorknobs versus the kind of lat or whatever kind of doodad they've got there. Can't think of the word. Whatever that is, that I can't think of the vocabulary is failing me. But yeah, so you can kind of see. Also, I kind of changed this up. I kind of like the idea of maybe putting a pine tree or two over here. You know, if this is in Santa Fe is kind of up in the mountains. You might have more pine trees. So maybe a couple, 3 or something over here to kind of have something in the backyard or in the side yard or whatever, you know, whatever this is. Maybe this house was built up in the mountains a little bit. So then there's this other kind of tree shape over there. So yeah, so that's where I'm at. Oh, and then my shadow, seems like this wall kind of ends over here and you get some sunlight. That's where this light is coming from. Although some of it, I kind of feel like some of it was bouncing back down off the wall. That's where some of that light was coming from. It's our painting. We can make it do whatever we want. So I'm going to go back to the share screen unless everybody's ready. That way, and I can kind of still fiddle with this a little bit. Plus, I sketched that in fairly dark, so I'm going to roll my kneaded eraser over it and lighten some of these lines up just a bit. So they're not quite as dark. I'm using I'm using an HB pencil, and it's fairly soft. Of course, the nice thing is a lot of the area where I was kind of screwing up, and took me a little bit to get the arch right, and a little bit to you know, there's a lot of excess pencil lines and stuff. That's mostly in the area where it's going to be kind of in shadows. So that'll be kind of nice. I think I made this wider than it is too, but that's all right. I might have to try this again one day and make that like a slotted gate that you can see through, and maybe there'd be some garden in there or something. That'd be kind of fun. Oh, I didn't draw that kind of surround. You know, I'm debating about that arch. I can't remember what that's. I don't think it's actually, the actual arch in the building. I kind of need to deal with that. And I don't know. I know I drew it on my sketch. Maybe I need to kind of figure something out for that too. All right, let's. I could make it just Adobe, or I'm not super crazy about it. I think it was concrete block is what they built that out of. That sort of surround on this area here. I kind of want to simplify it a little bit. I have it drawn on my sketch, but I don't have it. Kind of like although something. Yeah, we'll draw it in. We'll draw it in. Maybe it's built out of wood too. It does make that door a little more substantial. Well, even up in the Northeast Heights of Albuquerque, you get pine trees. So. Heck, you get them here too. So. Maybe this one. I'm trying to think where. This is what happens when you take a photo and then don't use it for 20 some odd years. Can't remember exactly where. Oh. And just because I'm adding, little pine trees or whatever to my, you don't necessarily have to do that if you don't want to, but. It's up to you guys. Because that's your painting that you're working on, so. You can kind of change things up or add things or take things out as you see fit. That's kind of the beauty. We can all paint the same thing and it'll all, every single person, one of us will come up with a slightly different composition. So whenever you guys are ready, just let me know. I'm not trying to rush or anything. I think I've kind of solved the. Maybe I need some. Back up in there. That's what's. Trees just sort of stop. Hmm.
I can go whenever you're ready.
Okay. Is everybody else ready?
I'm ready.
All righty.
I'm ready.
Cool. All right, so let's stop that. We'll go back to this. It's a little hard to see, but you can see that I felt like, so I was drawing these trees over here, and here you can see my sketch. I kind of felt like I liked the idea of there being some pine trees back in there. So I added those, and then I thought, oh, well, that just feels like whatever's going on behind here stops at the edge of my building. So I added a little bit more trees, so it, maybe there's a big tall cottonwood back there or something. Sorry, my hand in front of this throws it out of focus. But and I'm still struggling a wee bit with the angle of this. I now think that this needs to kind of come down in that direction. So this shadow would be kind of there. So I'll get a wee bit of this door kind of peeking out from there as well. So that's kind of cool. Just to add a little more complexity to that, but let's see. So Yeah. So I think that that looks all right. It's not too dark. You can always take, if you have one of these kneaded erasers, which when you get them, they're square. They're kind of a flat square. But you can always kind of soften it up, and then if your pencil lines are a little dark, and you can roll it over the pencil lines, and it'll kind of pick some of that up and lighten your pencil lines for you. If you feel like maybe they're a wee bit too dark. I don't know that these are that dark, but just in case, I'm just going to lighten them just a bit. Of course, it makes it a little harder for you guys to see it, but yeah, it's coming back into focus a little bit. Let's see here. There. So, first thing, let's see. I really got my paint wet early, and now it's gone and dried up on me a little bit. So I'm just gonna re-wet some of these that have dried up. In case I want to use them. And let's see, before I get too much water. So we'll just kind of slide over here and let's move that back up. Well, yeah, my palette almost fits in screen. You can kind of see the lower portion of these wells and the upper portion of these wells. So you can kind of see everything. I'm going to use some. Do I want to start with lemon yellow? I don't think I want to start with. I like to paint, and most of you may know this already. I don't know, but I like to add a little variety of color to like to walls, whether they be adobe, concrete block, whatever they are. So I like to give them that kind of, like in the photo there, this is kind of washed out and they kind of have this blue kind of hue to them, which we'll get some of that in the shadows. But I like to make my buildings kind of brightly colored looking. So I use a lot of yellows and oranges and reds in the light areas of my my architectural landscapes, I guess, if you will. Let's get my brush wet. So I'm going to start with my flat brush, and I think I'm going to start with a little. I could start. Actually, I may start with some Azo yellow, or do I want to start with Indian? I could start with permanent yellow deep. I could start with permanent yellow lemon, but I think that's got a little bit of more of a green tint to it than I want. So I think I'm going to start with permanent yellow deep, or I could start with Indian yellow, which is actually somewhere slightly lighter than permanent yellow deep, or I could start with Azo yellow, which looks like it's. So this is. Let me just scoop that up a little bit more. There we go. This is right here in the lower left-hand corner is Indian yellow. And then Azo yellow is this, and this looks way more orange, but it actually comes out lighter, I think, if I remember right. Yeah, well, no, wait, no, I've got that mixed up. Yeah, so Indian yellow is kind of in between permanent yellow deep and permanent yellow orange. That's where that falls. And then Azo yellow kind of falls, it falls slightly lighter than permanent yellow deep, in between lemon yellow and yellow deep. You can kind of see there. So any one of these would, if you have lemon yellow and you don't have, lemon yellow is fine. I think I'm just gonna kind of go with the tried and true permanent yellow deep, but those are just like, if you have Azo yellow for some reason, or maybe it came in the set you bought, or kind of a medium light orange, or if you don't have a medium light orange and want to take kind of an orange and maybe your lemon yellow and mix them together and see what happens. I could, just to kind of experiment here, I'll put a little permanent yellow orange, which is very similar to cadmium orange. I'll put a little of that on my palette, and then I'll grab some of this permanent yellow. And you can see it lightens that up quite a bit. And it makes it fairly close to what I have with the Indian yellow and permanent yellow deep. I mean, the permanent yellow deep's a little brighter, but that still works. So, and I think the only reason it's got a little hint of like brownish color in it is because I've gotten green, like permanent green 1 or 2 mixed in with my lemon yellow over the years. So there's a little hint of that in there. So I'm going to start with just some permanent yellow deep. I will move into some permanent yellow orange, which is cadmium orange, very similar to cadmium orange. You can see there a little bit oranger. I'll use some of that. I'll be using some opera, which is up here. It's this nice pink that I've got over here on my palette. I know I'll be using some of that, so we'll get a little of that going. Let's see, this is that alizarin crimson? No, that's, let's see. Alizarin crimson I had sitting right here. I think that's Scarlet Lake, or that, no, that's just red, which I'll probably use some permanent red or alizarin crimson. So I'm just kind of re-wetting some of these puddles that I've got. But I'm going to start with my permanent yellow orange, and we'll just oh, let me get this other light on. Maybe that'll, I got a bit of a, that helps. I think that helps a little bit. I've had a bit of a shadow from over here, and I think it was because I didn't have this backlight on. Okay, so I'm going to come in with permanent yellow deep. And even though like this is going to be in shadow, this is a cast shadow, and I want some of that wall color to show through. So I'm going to start up here with this, and I'm not going to worry too much as I get over here close to my kind of shrub, whatever kind of shrub that is. I'm not going to worry about color changes or anything. But as I get over here, let's see, I do kind of think that I'm going to grab some azo yellow just because it's slightly lighter, and pull that over here just to give that, that's out in the sun there, just a little lighter yellow. And now I'm going to switch to a little permanent yellow orange, which is just oranger, more orange, I guess. Oranger is not really a word. And I'm going to pull this down. And this is a fairly small space, so there's not a lot of room to really get crazy with the color changes. But I'm going to add a little opera down in here as I kind of pull this around. And you can see I've left, I'm not painting this kind of arch, this top, I've got my doors here. I've got this kind of upper arch thing that's what supports everything. And then I'm just going to kind of come in and think about where those tree, this shrubby thing comes in. I'm going to grab a little more azo yellow just to let that run down into where I've got the opera, and even plop some down with the brush. And then we'll just kind of pull that down into here, this kind of orange. It's a little hard to see, but I've drawn this shrub so it kind of sticks out in front of the door a little bit. And this will all get darker at some point. So I'm going to now switch over to some permanent red. This will all be in shadow, but I want these kind of lighter colors, maybe even a little alizarin crimson. We'll switch over to, which is a little more violet looking. than the red. The red has kind of a pink, well, it's red. And when you put it down on the paper, the white of the paper kind of gives you that pink look. So we'll just have this kind of come down and like so. And then I need to do the same over here on this wall and even down in here. So I'm going to grab some more. I think for this, I'm going to grab some azo yellow. I really like that lighter, slightly lighter, but not lemon yellow yellow. And I'm just going to kind of bring that on down, pull it all the way over, even over where I have I have the shadow kind of sketched in right here. I'm going to paint over that because I want to put that shadow in with some of this yellow showing through. Let's switch over to the permanent yellow deep. It's just slightly darker than the azo yellow. We'll just kind of plop that in there. Let's add a little, let's go for a little opera again. And if you don't have opera, don't worry about adding it. This just adds a little pop of, and don't worry, I put that little dot there just to show you, but I'll fiddle with it here in a second. I'm putting a little opera down, and then even over here, that just looks like a blotch. So I'm just gonna drop some more water on there. I can even take, just to kind of give it maybe like the walls a little ancient, I can come in with a little permanent green #1 right in here. Let's get that a little more. There we go. And add just a hint of green to that. Maybe there's not mold, but moss. Maybe sometimes this is in the shade and there's been, kind of a mossy color thing that's grown up on there. Let's go in with a little alizarin crimson now. Down in here. And just add, I put some paint down and now I'm just thinning that with water. Let's go back to a little of the permanent yellow deep. Just in there. And this goes back, I could even use, like, instead of green, I could have used peacock blue just to add a little bit of that to it. Just a little color, just variation. And this goes back to that first exercise we did with the multicolored wash. That's essentially, kind of my whole theory on, and I know I'm not the only one who does it, so I'm not taking credit for it. But it's kind of the whole way I think about anything, painting anything. I want a bunch of different colors in there so it doesn't look flat. So this is alizarin crimson that I've added there. And we'll just pull that wall out like so. Pull some of that up in there, maybe add a little bit more water in some spots and let things run. But that taking, kind of this complementary color of green, or in this case, here it's peacock blue, but it kind of becomes green with these yellows, makes it just a little bit more interesting and pop a little bit more. But you'll notice that it's really light. It's mostly water, very little paint that went into that. Maybe I want a little bit more of that up here. Just a little bit more. We'll just kind of let that, I put a little down, then I cleaned my brush out and added more water. So I really want that to be subtle. I'll kind of show that again over here. Maybe I want a little more. So I put a little blob of paint there But now I really want to like let that. And maybe I want a little of that over here. This hasn't quite dried yet. So we'll add and I'm just using peacock blue in here. You could use permanent green #1. You could use, whatever light spring green you have. Whoops, sorry. Somebody trying to call me there. I have a whole bunch of people trying to sell me solar panels. And they though I tell them to remove me from the call list. I like solar panels. I think they're cool, but I can't afford them. And I really wanted information on, I think I might have told you guys this last week. I just wanted information on a specific tile that's a solar panel. And it's like a roofing tile. It looked really cool. And I wasn't thinking that it was an ad for anything. I thought it was an informational thing that I clicked on. Doggone it. Now they're calling me. I'm going to kind of clean that. Clean that line up a little bit, but whoops, sorry. When they call me, it switches. Let's see here. Come on, let go. There we go. There we go. And back in. So sorry about that. It switches the orientation of the screen when they do that too. So it's very annoying, and I always forget about that. Okay. So that's kind of those two. You can see they're just, kind of multicolored washes. Not too dark yet, or not too bright either. They'll get brighter. I can go back in and add another little thing of maybe I'll add a little more azo yellow just to brighten that up just a bit up here. Maybe that I feel like picked up a little green, but that's all right. Just to kind of brighten that up just a hair up in here. And I can even grab, if I feel like it maybe needs it, I can grab a little lemon yellow and add that up in here as well. I just have to remember that this part is dry over here, so I have to kind of pull. If I don't want any weird blotchy blossoms forming, which I actually don't mind, but in this case, I think it's kind of a small space. I don't want to deal with that. If I don't want to, I have to re-wet the whole thing, and then it'll dry. But I do like blossoms on, stucco or adobe looking walls, whether it's stucco or adobe, doesn't really matter. Because it gives it texture. This may be a little too dry. Maybe that right there is not. I think I can get something going on there. Little start, blossom. I can even add some more yellow down in that just to further lighten up that area. And I think so. I'm gonna get some of this. I'm gonna make a thirsty brush. So I'm gonna take my brush and my rag, and I'm just gonna squeeze the water out. And where I'm getting little puddles down here or here, I'm just gonna use that thirsty brush to pick up that excess water. I'm getting one right there where there's a big bump right here where the paper buckled. So I want to just pick up some of that. A lot of times, mostly I like to do it around the edges because what will happen is That will dry last because it's so wet. There's so much water puddled up there that this will dry, and I'll get these weird blossoms, which are cool looking, but they're right next to the edge of the paper. And, you know, that's just a waste of, you don't want something super interesting right in the, you know, I don't want anything super interesting going on right there in the corner of my painting. You know, when I first started out, I used to get these cool things that would happen right on the edge. And when I was framing things, I was always trying to save those. You know, I'd be matting something, and I'd have the mat right up to the edge of the, you know, the paper because something really interesting was happening right there, and it dawned on me that I was actually making the composition a little worse because something cool was going on right here, and that's what I wanted to show, when really this is my area of interest somewhere over here. And then, you know, it's either right, you know, in here or over here, or maybe it's this whole area, which I know is kind of in the center of the paper, but it is a little off center. So, but you can see I'm starting to get some interesting kind of textural things happening right here. As that dries, I can even add maybe just a hint of more water in a couple of spots, and we'll get a better blossom. And then what I'm going to do is actually hit it with the hairdryer. If I had low, I'd use low, but as you guys know, I broke my hairdryer, so it only has the one speed. But if I hold the dryer way up high, it's almost like being on low. But this will let that kind of dry a little faster, but not quite as fast. And I can see, we'll come over here to that section, get that dry. Yeah, I'm getting some interesting textures going on there, but not too much. So it starts to kind of look like an adobe wall or stucco wall. Add some age to the, let's see. I think I've got that. Yeah, I've got it too dry. I was going to see if I couldn't add any more water to it, but you know, I'm happy with that. What's going on there? Let's just go ahead and get it dry. That's close enough. Let's see if I can kind of zoom in here a little bit, or maybe just pick this. Let's see. Here you can kind of see the interesting texture I'm getting on this. So it's just, you know, it's just kind of fun. The green, you know, displaced a lot of these lighter colors, but there's not a, you know, it's not like a big blob of green, because then I dropped that azo yellow on, and that started to displace some of the darker colors. So I've got this interesting little crack looking thing here. Obviously, if this were your house or something in real life, you would fix this stuff, but this is the stuff that makes makes it look interesting to me. Of course, if it were my house, I'd be out there fixing that, but anyway. It's like I like to paint rundown barns, but if I had a rundown barn, I'd be fixing it.
So how do you get that grainy look?
The grainy look? Oh, like where I got
Yeah.
a lot of those little grainy bits?
Yeah.
That was just opera. For some reason, it gets a little granular.
Oh,
And
okay.
it causes that. So I've got those little, I've got that little graininess in there, and it's just from the paint. It just does that. So it's luck more than anything.
Huh.
Sometimes cerulean blue can get a little grainy like that, and so can Andrew's turquoise. And you know, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I hate it when even royal blue can kind of get grainy." A lot of artists don't like it because, well, you know, if I was painting a portrait of somebody, I wouldn't want all these little speckles. You know, you want somebody's skin to look kind of smooth, but in this case, I like the grainy, and since I don't really paint a lot of portraits, but yeah, that's just the opera making those nice little grains. So my opera, and it doesn't matter what brand. I remember Tom Lynch talking about Holbein colors not getting grainy. That's just, you know, not true. I mean, this is Holbein opera, and now he uses Sennelier brand paints, and I think he says the same thing. Of course, those have honey mixed in, so it does make it a little more creamy paint. I haven't tried them yet. I kind of want to order a couple of tubes of them just to try them out, but I don't get free paint like Tom does, so so I haven't done that yet. But I sometimes, you know, sometimes that graininess can kind of work in your favor, and really that's all that is the paint getting a little grainy, a little granular. And you know, a lot of times you can rub those off once it's dry, but I like to, you know, leave them sometimes. So I like that little bit of grainy, but that's exactly what that is. It's just the paint got granular. Now a cool way to do it, if your paint's not granular like that, and I don't know that I have any salt with me to use as an example, but if you have some like rock salt, I don't really recommend using sidewalk salt, because a lot of times that has fertilizer and stuff mixed in with it, so it doesn't kill your grass. But like ice cream salt, the stuff you buy to make ice cream, I know I have some floating.
Oh, yeah.
You can
Huh.
get kind of, and I've never been really good at it. I think it's because I'm not patient. So you have to wait until your paint is still fairly wet, but not shiny. So you can't really use a hairdryer. You just have to let it sit. And then you want to wait till, you know, it's still wet, but not shiny. And then you can drop, even like if I wanted little tiny granular looking things, you could use table salt. It would work very similarly. The one thing you've got to do though is you have to wait till it dries naturally, and then you've got to really do a good job of cleaning it off your paper, because it'll kind of fuse into your paper, which is fine. I mean, it's not really a problem. You know, I've flicked little pieces of salt off of paintings, you know, months later. I'm like, oh, there's still a little piece of salt on there. Technically, it's probably kind of hard on the acid-free paper, but Tom Lynch doesn't use that technique anymore, because he said a museum was going to buy one of his pieces, and then they found out he used salt on it, and they were like, oh, we can't buy that, you know, because of this. So he kind of quit doing that. I don't sell to a lot of museums, and I figure, you know, it's still going to last for several hundred years, if not more, if people take care of them. So, you know, that's about as permanent as you can get, I think, with watercolor. I figure, you know, I mean, we have watercolors from you know, the 1500s that are still around. So I'm not too worried about that. And they were using, you know, they were doing all sorts of stuff to their paper. So, so I'm not terribly worried about the longevity. But some museums get kind of, you know, they get kind of prickly about it, which is why he stopped using salt. But personally, I think it's a really cool technique. Yeah, I think it's a really cool technique. I just haven't mastered it as much as my mom was so good at it. I thought I had some salt floating around here somewhere, but I guess not. I have a whole thing. I mean, I have table salt. And actually, you know, with that's what this is just normal table salt. With normal table salt, that, you know, the grains are so little that you'd get, like, you'd have to use a lot of it, I think. With the bigger salt, though, it's really cool. You can actually reuse it, and I was trying to find mine. I was looking around for it because it's actually colored now. I reuse it. You know, I flick it off of my paper. You know, I get it off my paper, but then I'll have to look around for it when we're not in class, so I'm not wasting your time looking for something. But it's really cool because the salt sort of absorbs some of the color, and it does these really cool mini blossoms for you. So you get really cool texture with it. And one of these days we'll have to try it in class. Maybe,
Yeah, that would be fun.
yeah, maybe when we're back in the classroom, so that you guys can, you know, I'll bring the salt, and you guys can try it and not worry about going out and buying a whole bag of ice cream salt. Just for a small little bit, because like I've said, I mean, I reuse mine. I've been using the same salt for like 20 years, so it's not. I had to look in one more spot because I'm curious now. So I'm gonna quit looking for it, and we'll get back to painting. So now that this is dry, I'm gonna do this down here as well. And because this is a cast shadow, I want some of this lighter color to show through. So I'm gonna have a little of that. Now, in this case, I'm going to, I want to start here and move my way up. So I'm going to just kind of flip this around so I can, use this, use gravity. Again, you know, I've got this on about a, you know, it's raised up on a 2-inch little thing, you know, like, you know, it's probably that wide, or it may even be, that's closer. It's probably 3 inches. You know, it's that little triangle thing. So I can use gravity. I get everything to flow down. So because this is going to be the lighter area up here, I want to start lighter up there. And as I get closer to the door, it'll get a little darker. So I just flip this around. Let's see, I'm going to come back in. I think I'm going to use a little, I'm just going to start with the Azo yellow. I like that. I haven't used it much in the past, but I've been using it the last few weeks, and I really kind of like it as an alternative to lemon yellow, especially when your lemon yellow is a little dirty like mine is. So I've got a little Azo yellow on there. Let's go into a little permanent yellow deep, which I can show you. You know, I'm just kind of grabbing a little bit more and then making a little puddle. And we'll just kind of bring some of that in like so. A lot of this will get kind of a little bit of a spray of blue on it. So this will get knocked back quite a bit, but we'll still know, it'll still register that that's a lighter area. So let's pull that in. Maybe add a little water so it lightens up a little bit more. And then let's go in with some orange kind of in here. And again, this is all going to be kind of covered up by shadow later anyway, but I'm going to add a little opera. And here you can see those greens pretty well. I think is that focused? Yeah, it's kind of focused. But you can see that it's gotten, yeah, it's hard to see. But there's a whole slew, oops, sorry. There's a whole slew of little granular things. Probably when I add a little more water, you'll see how granular that got. Kind of see now. And let's go into a little alizarin crimson. Back up in here. This is where kind of those two things will meet. And maybe even a little permanent red. Let's plop a little of that in here. It won't really matter. Again, this will just be kind of background for the shadow. So maybe a little bit of this will show through. I'm also not too worried that I was trying to fix that for a second, and then I had to tell myself not to be worried about the fact that I kind of fudged that line a little bit. Let's see. Let's bring this in over here. And I don't need a whole lot of, although I kind of like that. I may add a little peacock blue just in here, just to maybe, you know, like the path is kind of, I don't know, got something going on as well. So that just, oops, get rid of that little line. I don't really care for that, although it won't hurt anything. So we'll just add a little of that in. Oops, I'm a little too high for you there. Sorry. Let's just kind of get that around there. You don't have to be super perfect here. All this is going to kind of get covered up by shadow anyway, but you want this kind of underpainting to show through. You as we put that other darker color down, these lighter colors will shine through. Let me add just a wee bit more water right in there. You can really see those kind of granules of the opera kind of floating around in there. I think somebody's setting off fireworks outside. Thinking, all right, July 4th is over. My dogs are sure ready for them to be done. Let's see. Just add a little bit more water in there. Clean up that line a little bit. But there you go. So that's kind of it. Now I can flip this back around, and it'll all run back down and run together. But you know, I got it to run that way, and now it's gonna kind of run this way a little bit. But if I'll go along here and kind of clean up this excess water a little bit. Yeah. All right. Fireworks are starting to know. I don't know if you guys can hear them. Probably not. I think my mic does a pretty good job of filtering out background noises. Yeah. What do I do with that? That was so high because I had the painting was really high. It was at a steep angle, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It was at a really steep angle because I had that thing way up in here. I can, as this, so here you can actually see it's still slightly shiny, but it's not sopping wet. Now would probably, you see how I hit that with water? This would be almost ideal time to add salt. That's exactly what's going on here. So it's slightly shiny, but not like super wet shiny. This is when you'd add the salt. And I'm always a little late or a little early, it seems like, when I do that. But you can see where I just plopped in a little water right there with my brush. Perfect time to add salt, and you could get some graininess going on there. In fact, I wonder, I'm going to kind of experiment here a little bit just with some table salt. It'll be a little too small, but let's just plop a little down there and see what happens while this dries. It'll be a little hard to see, but you can kind of see the salt on there. In little, so as this dries, and I may have waited just a wee bit. Well, that's still okay. We'll see what happens. Being table salt, it probably won't do a whole lot. Really just smaller chunks of the ice cream salt is the way to go. But of course, the one problem is I can't really. Let's see if I can. I'll use the hairdryer way up high so it doesn't blow that stuff around. And I can see it doing a little bit. It's picking up a little. I think this might actually be a decent experiment. It's a little hard to tell, but you can kind of see where it's picking up a little bit of that. So it's got these little white specks. Most of this is going to get covered up with shadow, so it won't really matter, which is why I was kind of willing to try it. But it might have been kind of cool on the wall. You can see a fair amount of little white specks there where the salt has picked up the color. I bet that's dry now. Yeah. So if I just kind of scrape that off, yeah, it worked all right. You can see this texture that it's done. See how cool that looks? Again, I mean, I'm going to cover this up with a shadow, so it'll kind of all disappear. But that is a really neat way. Even the table salt actually kind of worked fairly well. But again, I kind of like to use a little bit bigger chunk of the ice cream salt. But yeah, so that actually kind of interesting texture that we've added there just by putting a little table salt on there. Again, normally I don't use table salt, but I don't know where my big chunks of course, then you've got the mess of salt all over your table. Plus, you don't want to get it in your paints, so you have to be pretty careful. But that did. I'm kind of wishing I had tried it over here now because I really like that texture. I don't know if you guys could see that really well, but yeah, you can kind of see it. But yeah, it would have been kind of cool over here on the wall. Just another fun way of adding texture. We'll definitely have to do that, I think, at another painting and kind of try it again. I think that's the first time I've ever done it where it worked and I was 100% happy with it. And now I'm sad I'm going to paint over it. Oh, you know what we've forgotten is this. Well, a lot of this is that kind of timber area. I'm going to come in with just this little round. I'm going to use my, what is this, a number 6. I'm just going to come in with a little permanent yellow orange and just add a little bit in here. Again, this will all kind of be in shadow, but I want some of this kind of orange to come through there. It won't be that noticeable. In fact, 99% of the people probably, and I may not even notice it once it's done, but I do want to kind of clean that up, bring some of that back down. I do want a little pop of that color coming in where the wall butts up to this kind of timber thing, whatever this edge of the archway is. I'm thinking in my painting it's going to be wood. Yeah. I'm okay with that. Okay. So I want to do this wall. This wall is really kind of in shadow with just a little bit of light refracting back on this area here. So I'm going to paint this fairly dark to begin with. And then, and I may actually wait. I think I'm going to wait on this wall because I want to do these things, you know, this stuff, because this will be lighter than this. So I want to use this dark to kind of sculpt this. So at any point I can change the shape if I don't like how it comes out. So I'm going to wait on this wall. I think what I'm going to do is start with this shrubby kind of stuff. Whatever this is. And I kind of had the idea that, in the photo, these are whatever that evergreen bush is. I can't remember. My parents have one in their backyard. And we actually, when we lived in Houston, the entire house was surrounded. They were like a hedge up against the wall of the house, kind of surrounded the whole house. I can't remember what they're called, but I know that's what this is. However, I would like to make it a little more interesting. I think I would like some pink flowers in there. So I'm going to quickly draw some little, let me get this sharp. This pencil sharpened. Where did my pencil sharpener go? There it is. Whoops. Wrench needs to go. So I'm going to sharpen my pencil. It's kind of dull after sketching it on there earlier. So there we go. That's pretty sharp. So what I want to do is kind of think about, I was thinking it would be like honeysuckle or trumpet vine or something like that. Who knows what it is? I want to make. I have so much orange that I don't really want to make it trumpet vine or honeysuckle because those are kind of orangey reds, and I have so much that I think I'd kind of like these to be kind of pink. And what am I? Brilliant pink container. Let's see here. I don't know what I did with it. I have a. Somewhere I have a turquoise, not a turquoise, I was looking at a thing that said turquoise. I have a container of like, it almost looks like Pepto-Bismol pink. It's called Brilliant Pink. Somewhere I have a tube of it, but I haven't been able to find it. I'm not going to worry about it. We'll get around with. We'll get by without it. But I kind of feel like I want some paint, and this is where opera comes in handy. Things like that, or kind of quinacridone rose or something. I'm just going to kind of come in here and draw little areas of, let's see if, I don't know, can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. Draw little areas where I'm going to paint around. And if I don't, I could use masking fluid on this, but I don't want to wait for it to dry. So I'm just kind of randomly putting some little blobs of color. I'm not too worried about, again, you know, this is kind of a impressionistic take on whatever this, you know, if this were in California, it could be a bougainvillea. You know, those won't grow here. It gets too cold. But you know, it could be, I can't think of a, you know, I know there's some other vines that have kind of pink flowers, and I'm not too worried about making them look like trumpet vine kind of things, or I'm just kind of making little blobs of color as we go. Maybe there's a little bit of that down in here, this kind of branch that kind of falls down and covers. So I'm just adding little, kind of randomly adding little blobs of where I want to save this, and I'm just going to paint around it with my brush. Again, it would make it easier if I use the masking fluid, but I just don't like waiting for it to dry. And one time I was doing this painting of kind of a garden scene, and I was doing it on the face of a guitar, and I was actually using watercolor because I had found this stuff called absorbent ground, and it's a gesso that you can use that watercolor with it. So it's really kind of cool if you're want to take. Well, I don't like what I just did there. I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I was telling this story. You can if you're like me and you like to kind of paint watercolors on canvas, which is kind of cool, but you don't want to go out and buy because I think there's only one brand of watercolor canvas right now. I could be wrong. Maybe somebody's now. I know for a long time it was Frederick's. They were the only ones making watercolor canvas. I don't know if their patent has run out its time or if they had a patent on it. Anyway, not important. But this stuff by Golden called Absorbent Ground is really kind of cool. Because you can paint it on any surface. Somewhere I have a rock that I painted it on. I don't know what happened to that either. Maybe somebody took it. Or I put it away somewhere. Anyway, you can paint it on just about any surface and then use watercolor on that surface. It's also good if you're doing acrylics or something like that. You can use it with that. But anyway, I was painting on this guitar face, and this is an extremely long story just to make this one point. And I apologize for that. The masking fluid does not work with absorbent ground. It doesn't stick to it. So I had drawn this whole thing out, and then I put masking fluid where I wanted to save all these flowers and different colored flowers and stuff, and discovered that when I used the hairdryer, I was as it got dry, I was using the hairdryer to dry the masking fluid, which I don't recommend doing very often. There's a little. And it just flaked off and blew off the guitar. So I kind of had to do this where I just kind of painted around spots, and it worked all right. Okay, so let's see here. Because I'm doing it this way, I'm going to use a smaller brush. Normally I would use like my 8 or 10. I'm going to use my number 6, just a little more control. And I'm going to start off with a little, let's see. I think I'm going to kind of clean. I need to find me a new sponge. I had this old sponge and it finally disintegrated. That's what I used to use to clean my palette with. Let's use one of these rags. I'm going to clean a little bit of this palette up just so I have kind of a clean area for paint. Whoops. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just spraying some water on here, and then I'm just going to wipe this up. I don't do this very often just because I like to, whoa, I'm coming. Got that rag right in the green. Not what I wanted to do. Let's spray a little more water on there. This is why I don't like using my painting rags for this, because I do exactly that. Anyway, I had a nice sponge and it disintegrated. So I have to go buy some new ones. Let's just flip that around. I mean, I am going to be using some greens, so it's not the worst. But now I just got green in my Pyro orange. You can kind of see, but that's all right. It's working. And that rag is going to go in the dirty rag bag so I can wash it. Maybe I'll just... Tom Lynch does this, and he's like so carefree about the fact that there's still paint there. And it just, I think I might be slightly OCD. It just bugs me when it's not perfectly. See, and I just got more green paint on there. Dang it. All right, I'm just going to stop worrying about that. Part of it is I got green paint on my hand. All right. This is why I had to stop painting in oils. I just kept getting the paint all over myself. And oil paint is a little more toxic than watercolor. Okay, so I'm going to start off. The reason I kind of wanted that a little cleaner was because I was going to start with a little lemon yellow. And I want that. I don't want to keep dipping in and accidentally get some green paint in there. So I wanted that fairly clean. What happens is I refill this lemon yellow, and I get down, I put new on top of the old, and then eventually I get back down to the old where I've got some green mixed in there, and that's always a little annoying. And so then I'll put more on top of it. What I really need to do is just get through that green layer. Here's a little permanent green number 1. As I need it, I'll go to Hooker's green and permanent green number 2, but I'm just going to start with these two puddles. Add a little more water to them, at least the green. And I was just mixing with my large, my 1-inch brush, but I'm actually going to use my number 6 round. So we'll just come back over here. And I'm going to start with, because, this is such a bright day, and I really like that bright day. So I want to start up here in the top, and I'm going to start with a little lemon yellow up here where it's really getting hit by the sun. And if, again, or not again, but just to make a note here, if I don't paint these little blobs, if I don't paint around these little blobs perfectly, I'm not going to, it's not going to ruin my day. I'm not too worried about it. If some of them get painted over, that's okay. It just lends itself to a little more randomness. Because I drew some in, and obviously you try to be random, but we're incapable of being totally random. So if some of these don't get used or they get painted over or whatever, it's not the end of the world. So don't worry about it if you do something like that. All right, so I've got enough lemon yellow. I need to make sure that I've got this pretty good, fairly wet. Let's grab just a wee bit more. There's a lot of water, just and a little bit of paint. It's mostly water though, because now I want to come in with that permanent green #1, which you can use any kind of grass, light grass green that you have. It doesn't have to be that exact permanent green #1 that I'm using, but this is a nice little color. I do like it. But any kind of grass green, light green that you might have, yellow green. And I'm just putting this down. I don't even like that shape, so I'm just going to paint over it. I'm putting this down now in there. I want to keep some of that yellow, but I don't want a lot of it. Just even though I've got a lot of it on there, I want this green to kind of mix with it and be a lighter green in some areas. And again, don't worry about these blobs if you paint over one, or it's not the end of the world. This is a make-believe bush. I don't, who knows what it is. It doesn't matter. Okay, so there we've got this permanent green #1. I think I'm going to switch to permanent green #2, which, as you can see, if I move back over here, it's a slightly darker green. It's not as dark as Hooker's green, which is this guy right here. So you can see that's quite a bit darker. And then up here, I have Hooker's green mixed with royal blue. So that's really dark. And I may use that eventually. I'll also end up using violet and some other colors. But let's kind of switch over to some permanent green #1 in here as well. I could use peacock blue in this. I'm going to add just a wee bit of this dark up in here. Maybe there's a little shadow running through there. Again, don't need to be too concerned about this shape that much. Well, I do kind of want to be, I want to be a little concerned with it, but not, if it doesn't follow the shape that I've drawn to the T, I'm not going to be concerned with that. I'm not overly anxious about that. I just, the general shape is what I want. Let's go back to the permanent green #1. And what I may do, I think what I'm going to do, I have this permanent green #1. I do want to kind of mix and make maybe a slightly lighter green in between here. And then I'll just bring that back over here and drop in some of that. You can see it's just a little bit, it's like a spring green, just a little bit lighter green in a few spots. Maybe there's a bit down in here. I do want to move fairly quickly because as this dries, I'll get weird lines. It's less of a problem in this, shrub thing than, say, on the wall, where it might not be where you want a weird line. Like here, I've got that kind of cool weird line, but you know, that was kind of intentional. Even though I didn't know exactly what it would look like, I still kind of knew something was going to happen there. Let's go. I'm going to grab a little Hooker's Green as we kind of move around. We're kind of getting down into where it's a little darker. So we'll grab a little of that. Maybe over here as well. Just kind of thinking about the first stage of this. I'm not overly concerned with texture or anything. I'm just kind of, or not texture, but you know, shapes. Aside from the main shape, you know, you can see I'm not really following these little blobs that I drew. Those were just kind of suggestions, so I'm not overly concerned with how those are going to turn out. I may actually, let's see, I'm going to do a little more of the Hooker's Green, just plain Hooker's Green. Let's see, I'm going to bring that out, sort of surround that little blob of green color where I'm going to have a flower, and then I might just bring a little in here just to break up that shape a little more. So, and you can see I'm just kind of going around. I'm not overly concerned with this looking really extremely realistic. That's not the way I paint. I like to be able to, you know, if I was really painting a honeysuckle and I wanted it to look like a honeysuckle, I could go into a lot of detail, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm giving the impression of some sort of flowering shrub kind of thing, or vine, you know, whatever it is. I'm going to move into, so I've got these blues up here. Let me just pull this back down a little bit. I've kind of got these blue greens up here. I'm going to not use like this stuff yet. What I am going to do is grab a little peacock blue right here, in this little clean spot. And I'm going to use a little of that over here now, in a few little areas, just to kind of give it just a little bit of a different color. It's a little hard to see because there's a little bit of a glare on that wet paint, but when it dries, you'll see. And again, I'm not super worried about shapes or textures that I'm, you know, or level, you know, texture, or not texture, but, you know, I'm just putting in some darker, you know, colors on top, letting those kind of do their thing. Let me grab this and put a little more water there. Maybe that'll run a little more. Maybe I'm going to grab a little quinacridone violet, which is my, you know, kind of light. It's kind of a light purple you can see there. And I'm just going to grab a little of that and mix it with this blue. This is royal blue mixed with quinacridone violet already. If you don't have quinacridone violet, you could mix alizarin crimson, which is a little more like this, but you could mix that with the blue and get kind of an interesting, or if you have permanent magenta, that works as well. It's very close. You know, some sort of mauve, you know, whether it's mauve or magenta or violet. I'm just darkening it up just a bit. So I haven't gone over here and gotten more because I still want it to be a little, where am I? There I am. I still want it to be on the kind of red side more than the blue. So I just want a nice little purple. Oops, I don't know if you can see that, but so yeah, I haven't gone over here and grabbed any more of the royal blue. I've just been using this stuff that's on the palette already. So I've kind of this nice purple, and let's just bring this back over here while this is still wet. I have to be careful with that cord. I think my phone's probably charged back up. It had gotten a little low, so I had it plugged in, but I'm going to unplug it now. So I'm adding just a little of this violet this dark, kind of purple color. And you may think, well, that's weird because this bush is green. But having this this complementary color to green in the foliage makes it a little more vibrant. It makes it more interesting. We'll just pull some of that down. And I know you guys have, well, I think maybe not everybody's seen me do a pine tree. When we get to the pine trees, I use a lot of violet in like, I'm kind of thinking maybe these little guys are blue spruce or something. I mean, they could be fir trees or something too, but we get a lot of blue spruce in the area up, kind of once you get a little higher into the mountains. Let's go back to a little of that peacock blue down in here. So, they're kind of something we'll see in the area. I'm gonna get a little of this peacock blue to run into that violet that I've got there. And I can tell this is starting to dry up, so I'm gonna add a little water up higher and try and get this to run down. So all I've done, I cleaned my brush out and I'm just moving stuff around with water. Obviously I've picked up paint by now, but I'll just keep cleaning my brush and I'll add a little water up here towards the top. And that's kind of a big blob of color right there. So, excuse me, I'm just gonna break that shape up a little bit. And let's kind of bring this down in here. I'm gonna now go into a little royal blue. That's this guy up in the corner up here. It looks really dark on screen, but I'm just going to put that down mainly because it's not. I'm not mixing it too much. I'm just putting a little color on top, and it's going to float on top of that other color. So it's mostly royal blue. I'm going to grab a little of that, and again, I mean it doesn't look like a huge puddle, but I have a fair amount of water in that. You can see I have a fair amount of water in my brush. And we're just going to kind of pull this color down into here. We don't want that shape to kind of be surrounded by color, as that one maybe. We'll just kind of do that. And then I think I'm just going to grab a little Hooker's Green. I didn't really clean my brush out. I just grabbed some Hooker's Green and we'll just kind of let that bleed into the blue. And I don't want that little thing there. Let's just kind of do this. And then I'm going to finish out, even though this is, down in the shadow, I'm going to finish out with a little light green on this thing just because it's going to be kind of in front of. So this is that light green that I mixed with the permanent yellow. And I want to just kind of pick up some of that excess Hooker's Green. We'll come back in with that light green here. But by picking that up, it lets that light green kind of flow uphill. It's a little weird, I know. Let me just come in with a little of that again. I can even get it to, if I plop it in here, it'll even flow downhill. I don't know if you can see that really well, but I threw in a bunch of light green, and you can almost kind of see it. If I drop a little water in there, you can see it starts to flow and mix in, but also displace some of that dark. So it gives me a nice little texture. So there's, let's see, where is it? There's that's that kind of first kind of shrubby bush shape, whatever vine, whatever this is. Maybe I'll add a little green and get it to kind of do that. I'm just changing that. That was one big thing, and then I changed it into two things, but they were kind of lined up. So by moving one over a little bit, they also are kind of the same shape. There we go. So right now that doesn't look like much of anything, just mostly I mean, it's greens and yellows and some purples and violets and whatnot in there. I do think I'm going to grab just a wee bit of permanent magenta on its own. That's this right here, you can see. And maybe drop a little of that in there just to kind of give it a little juice, especially where it's still pretty wet. It's not wet there, but I can add some more water and get that to kind of work right. And that all that is just adding just a little bit more vibrancy, a little more variation in color in some spots. That may all disappear eventually, or it may get an increase. You know what? I don't even like that double shape. I'm just gonna make that smaller. I'll just take a little royal blue and get rid of that shape entirely. Now it's just a smaller shape. It was still too much, too similar in shape to this shape, even though it's smaller. And sometimes that happens. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry. First, I want to get rid of this line that I don't like right there. This again would be a cool place where you could use salt once it dries a little bit. Right now it's too wet where I've got it. To get some cool texture. I'm not going to do that on this, but only because it's. I think I'm going to pull a little more of that in there too. Only because it's just so wet and I've added so much water. I can take a thirsty brush, just squeeze out all the water and pick up some of that excess if I feel like there's too much in a few spots, but I'm not going to add salt to that, but you could if you wanted to. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and do this one. And then I'm going to do the ones back here in the back. So I'm going to go back to my lemon yellow. This guy is mostly in sunlight with just a little bit of stuff down in here that's darker. I mean, there is some stuff internally that's darker, but we'll get to that later. So I'm going to start off with oops, I need to clean my brush and I need to let you guys see what I'm doing. I'm going to start off with a little lemon yellow right there. Maybe I'll mix in a little. I've got a little excess in my brush. I'm just going to mix it in with that green so I already have some. So let's get my brush wet again, clean, pick up some of that and come back over here. And now we're going to, let's see. We're going to come in. And at first, this won't look like there's enough contrast behind, but with that and stuff, that's okay. We can deal with that in a little bit. We can go back in and add stuff to this wall to push it back in space. So don't worry that that's so close to that there's not a lot of contrast between the two. We'll take care of that. Let's see. This is going to have some light in it. Maybe down in here. I'm just kind of thinking of all the places where light might hit this full on. Even if there's some darker areas in between. So let's I'm going to grab some of that mix, that light green yellow mix, and go in and add that to this. And a whole lot of water because that yellow had started getting kind of dry on me. We'll just kind of moving around, adding more of that green, letting it kind of blend in on the paper with the yellow. Let me clean my brush. That yellow right there got too dry, so I'm going to add a little more water. I'm going to come in and pick up a little more yellow and put it up in here, but also pull, I grabbed a little more yellow on my brush, but I'm also grabbing a little bit of the green that's on the paper and pushing it into that area. I can come back and grab a little more green in a few spots. Let's see, I think down in here will be kind of, a little bit of the light area. And then we'll start moving in. I'll grab a little permanent green number 2 and place that, maybe that'll be a little over in here. This is just kind of the first layer of color. This one got a little dark. I think it got a little away from me, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about it, but once it dries, it won't be quite that dark. Little permanent green number 2. Just kind of pulling that in. Maybe a little hooker's green as well. Just plain hooker's green, no blue in this. Just maybe in there. Down in there, and then as we come in down here, let me I know maybe over on this side, this will be kind of darker over here in some spots. And all I'm doing is kind of plopping this down. I don't like that shape, so I'm going to change it. I'm just kind of using the tip and doing little tick marks to mix this. I don't like that shape either. What I did there, let's get rid of that. And we'll use a little, where was I? I was going with peacock blue. I'll grab a little peacock blue, drop a little of that in here. I don't want to get quite as dark as that one because this one is a little more in the sun. And I know this is just looking like, I don't know, like crisscross of things. But when we get to the point where we add in the color for the flowers, we'll be in good shape. I'm going to grab a little of the quinacridone. Let me go back over here and show you what I'm doing. I'm going to grab a little more of the quinacridone violet and place it on top of this stuff that I mixed before. But you can see it's quite a bit lighter. It's not quite as dark and not quite as blue as the stuff I mixed before, because I didn't go back in and get more royal blue. I didn't try to mix more of whatever's here in there. I just put this on top, so it kind of lightened that just a wee bit. We'll come back over here. Kind of add a little of that in there. In a couple of spots just to and then add, a whole lot of water because I really want that to run. I don't want it that dark or bright. Pick some of that up because I don't want that much there. And let's go into the royal blue now. I'm just gonna grab some of that royal blue. If you don't have royal blue, any any kind of dark blue, ultramarine maybe, Prussian blue. Let's I'm gonna grab, I am gonna grab some of the, so I have this dark green royal blue mix here. I'm just gonna grab a little blue and put that in there. Let's see, that's a little too much, so let me grab a little Hooker's green and put that in there. So that's a little, I don't know how great that looks on screen, but it's a little bit lighter than that second bit that I made. But I want to come in with a little of this dark green blue instead of, I think instead of the royal blue, it's going to work a little better in this case. Down in here. And maybe, so I've got some of that in there. Now I'm going to come back to the permanent green number 1 and just plop in a little of that just so I get a little bit lighter green. Even though this is kind of down and in the dark, it's, I imagine that there's a little bit of light sort of bouncing off of something, lighting this area up. Let's say I didn't have enough water in my brush. I was grabbing a little lemon yellow just to throw in there, just to displace some of that darker color. It's kind of nice when you get a little blob of that yellow, kind of displacing some of the really dark stuff. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, Becky got knocked out. Let me get her back in. There we go. So not quite as dark, but it's also a smaller bush. For some reason, I wanted it to be a little smaller. Coming back in with a little lemon yellow, just as this isn't quite dry right in here, and I can get that lemon yellow to kind of run down into that. I'm going to change the shape of that a little bit. It looks really a whole lot darker on screen than it does in person. But yeah, so I'm gonna dry that really quickly. I do feel like I need a little more of that violet kind of floating around in here. So while that's still wet, maybe we'll break up that shape too. Just felt like it needed a little more in there. All right. Okay, so where am I? So I'm just going to kind of step back and look at this for a second. I'm okay with that. I think it did still turn out a little dark. Part of it is on screen, because what I'm doing is, instead of really stepping back, I just turned around and I'm looking at it on my screen. On screen, it's a little darker than real life, I think. So I'm okay with it. So now I'm going to do these trees up in here real quick. And you guys know I like to do trees a lot of, well, most of you know probably that I like to use spray bottles to do trees, but since you guys don't all have those, and these are fairly small anyway, I'm not going to really do it that way. I like to do it, teach it a couple of different ways. You can also, what's kind of fun if you have, and I won't for this either, but if you have some natural sponges, like this is a natural sponge that I've broken apart. It used to be a much bigger, this is another part of the same sponge. It used to be a really huge sponge, and I split it up between my mom and I. I think my niece has her part now, but here's another piece. And this is a really great way to make texture on trees. But again, these are really small. I'm not going to really worry about that too much. So I'm just going to paint these in with a brush. What I am going to do real quick is lighten up this pencil line, particularly on these sort of deciduous trees, because once I paint yellow over them, they will forever be locked there. And if I kind of have a feeling that I'm going to want them to be a little bit bigger than maybe what's I've drawn on there. So I'm going to, I just kind of lightened that. And I'm going to come in with a little lemon yellow again. Not a lot this time. I'm getting a little echoey thing going on here. Let's see.
Hey, Michael,
Yeah.
I've got to go. I've got
Okay.
to put my chickens up.
Okay.
And so I'll just get the recording to finish what you're doing.
Okay. I'm going to try and post it tomorrow so that you guys can
Oh,
do
great.
it over the weekend.
Oh, all right. Awesome.
Cool. So, all right. Well, have a great evening, and we'll see you next week on Monday.
Yep. What day? What day
Monday.
we doing?
No, normal
Next week.
day. Normal day.
Monday?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Sounds great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right. So,
Good night. Have a great weekend.
all right. So you can see I've added a little bit of lemon yellow, not a huge amount, just in a few spots. And now I'm going to come in with that permanent green #1 and add a little of that. And I'm kind of doing this. I'm not having to paint around little, places where I'm going to have flowers and stuff. So I'm just going to come in with a little permanent green #1. Hopefully, let's see, I'll probably let this get a little too dry up here, but that's okay. We'll just wet that back down and get that to kind of blend a little bit. These trees will eventually get a fair amount darker, but right now I want just kind of light greens and yellows in there for now. I want to kind of get those to blend. This is my first kind of layer on these trees. We'll add other layers to add volume to them. Let's see here. So we'll kind of bring those in. Now, as I get down here, I do need to come in a little darker so I can distinguish between this shrub thing in the front and this tree in the background. So I am going to put in a little hooker's green right there. I'm not too worried about having a lot of it, though. I don't. Later we'll get a little dark. Let's go back to the permanent green number. Well, I'll just grab a little permanent green number 2 as well down in here. So just kind of playing around with the texture. As I get down here towards the wall, I want to kind of keep that line fairly clean. Let's add some more water just up in here. Get that to blend nicely. In some places, I'll have a little texture. You can use, and for this, some of the time I'm using the point, and some of the time, I'm not necessarily holding my brush like this when I'm doing it, but I'm using the edge of my brush just to kind of get a little bit more. Let me plop a little of this permanent green number 2 down in here. I need to be careful around this edge as well. So I'm just going to kind of lightly take that in. For this, I was using the kind of the edge of my brush. I was doing a long stroke there. I'm going to come in with a little bit more yellow up in here and just kind of increase the size of this tree just a little bit. I can always kind of paint over it if I decide I don't like it with sky or something. I am going to lift some of that back out now that, whoops, just stuck my hand in that other tree. But I do want that to, it just felt like it needed another bit of something going on there. So let me grab a little permanent green number 1, kind of finish this out down in here. And then back to the permanent green number 2. We'll kind of finish. I'm going to bring it around. And originally I had this tree kind of here, but I think what I'm going to do is actually pull this tree down into here, like it's a big cottonwood or something. And then I'll worry about, I'm going to grab a little more lemon yellow and maybe mix in a little permanent green number 1. I feel like this tree's bigger and these guys are kind of back in the background there. Maybe they're in somebody else's yard. Little hooker's green right in here, just as I get closer to this bush back, the foreground. I want to have this be a little darker, so it goes in behind. It'll eventually get even darker, more than likely, but I don't want to go too dark too fast. I kind of feel like I might have done that on these, but I might have gotten a little carried away. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. Let's see. Little hooker's green down in here. That's just pure hooker's green, so it looks really dark. Pull some of that back up into here. And there was less water and more paint in that bit that I did there. Kind of clean up that line just a skosh. But you can see that gives me a really nice little thing to push this part of the house forward. I'm going to grab a little permanent green number 1. and lemon yellow mix and just plop a little right on there. Again, I'm not too worried about this pine tree. It may even get moved over a little bit. Who knows? Again, this is just, I'm just trying to make this tree's shape kind of interesting. I don't want it too perfect. So I'm just making it a more interesting shaped tree. I'm going to add a little water. Get that to run. This is probably too dry now to get any kind of good kind of maybe not. Maybe if I add a little more paint, a little more water, we'll get that to run a little bit too. What I did there was I picked up that mix, that permanent yellow and permanent green, or lemon yellow and green #1 mix that I'd made, and I plopped a little in there, and then I hit it with some water. So just drop in some water, and that makes it run nicely. Because that had gotten a little dry on me as I was fiddling around. I probably should have finished this tree and then started on this tree, but I have a habit of kind of going back and forth. Let's see, back to this permanent. Normally, this side of the tree would not really be in shadow, but in my mind, maybe it's being cast by this tree. So, maybe they're kind of close to each other or something. So I'm not too worried about the fact that this side of the tree would be in light, because I kind of feel like maybe this tree is casting a shadow. But there, yeah, that we've got a nice little tree there. Oops, too far over. If I kind of zoom in on that area a little bit, you can kind of see. I mean, there's not a lot to it. It's just plopping some color down and kind of getting it to run together and do its thing. So, excuse me. Yeah. And I'm thinking, this taller tree may move over here. I had it here, but it's really quite easy to move this one over, and this one might get moved and that one might end up over here. Who knows? But I have some nice tree shapes there. I'm kind of happy with them. If I wanted to, I could add just a hint of permanent yellow deep into a few spots, just to say, oh, well, maybe it's late summer and we're getting a little bit of that fall coming in. Not quite autumn yet, but maybe we're getting a little of that color starting to happen in a few spots, just by dropping that little bit of orange in there. There we go. Gives me a nice variation on color, another kind of thing. So I'm going to dry that really quickly, and I'll do these pine trees. Maybe. How are we doing? Oh yeah, we got about 15 more minutes. So let me suck up some of this excess. I got a little bit of excess water here that's just kind of blowing around. So I'm just going to take my 1-inch flat that's still damp. Make sure I squeeze out all the water and just kind of pick up that excess. You can also use like a piece of toilet paper or something, but I kind of like using the brush. Yeah. All right. So now these fun. I really like painting these pine trees. This is kind of a whoa. Just took a screenshot on accident. They're kind of fun. You know, a lot of times, and I'll show you a little. Let's see. Do I have a little scrap of paper here? I know I did. What did I do with it? Oh, here it is. A lot of times when we're painting, and I have a little demo, but I'm going to flip this over and show you again, even though this piece of paper is a little dirty. A lot of times when we're drawing pine trees, well, as kids, you know, we do this kind of thing. And we have that nice little pine tree, and that's fun. You know, nothing wrong with that. Or we'll come in and we'll just do like this shape, which again suggests that, and that's fine. I've come up with this this other way of doing it, and it's using. I'm doing it with a pencil first, and then I'll show you. It's using the side of my brush and the point of my brush. I kind of come in with a center thing, and then I come off with these shapes that are kind of scribbly. You know, sometimes they'll go up, you know, and they just kind of keep working their way down. So I'll show you that with a brush really quick. And I'm just going to use one color, but I like to use multiple colors. So I'm just going to grab a little of that Hooker's Green Royal Blue mix for this. And I'll show you this really quickly. So I can just paint over this sketch that I did with the pencil, but I kind of like to and I like to have a fair amount of water in my brush. So I do have a lot of color in there, but I also have a fair amount of water. And I'll start off, and you can see I'm using the tip of my brush right now, and I'm pushing and I'm pulling. And maybe I need a little bit more up there. Maybe that got a little too fast. But I'm just kind of scribbling this kind of pine tree shape. And it's amazing how great this ends up looking. You know, I like to switch up color, but right now I'm not, you know, I'm just doing it with this dark green. You know, as you get down into the larger, fatter area of a tree, then you can move in and really plop in, you know, kind of do this with the side of your brush. But see how, and by, you know, having a few things that go up here and every now and then, you know, I've painted this, that was really pretty easy to do. So I did that with one color. I also like to mix up the colors, and I'll show you that here with this first one. You know, a lot of people will come in and they'll do this with their brush, and you want to try to work for this kind of more naturalistic. I'm not saying realistic, but just kind of more naturalistic. I mean, there are trees that kind of do look like this, but this you're going to have a little more fun trying this. So let me. I'll just move that out of the way. I'm going to start off. So well, I'll show you what I got going on here. So this is that Hooker's Green Royal Blue mix that I've got right here. It's fairly dark, and it feels like a pretty good blue sprucey kind of, you know, fir tree kind of color. I've got Royal Blue just sort of sitting here, and I may not need all these because these trees are pretty, you know, just the tops of the trees are visible. And then I'm going to make, so I've got this Royal Blue, and this is the quinacridone Violet mix. Now I don't want it this purple, but I'm adding a little more royal blue to it, a lot more water. And then let me clean my brush out, and I'm going to grab a fair amount more of the quinacridone violet. And you can see I'm getting a nice purple. And I think for this tree, I'm going to start with the purple because I want to add a little touch of maybe a highlight of some sort in here. It could be red, it could be opera, anything. I'm definitely, so you can see where I have the tree drawn. I'm going to move it over here. So I'm moving it over about a ½ inch from where it was. And I'm gonna about the same height. I'm gonna just kind of come in, and you can see right now I'm using the top of, or the tip of my brush, and I'm just kind of scribbling with it. Just drawing this little bit of a tree. So I've got enough purple in there. I think I'm gonna move into just the, I probably won't get into the royal blue. I think I'm just gonna go into the green. I'm gonna start off here with this. Let me grab a little more blue into that green though. I'm going to start off here and then push it up into the violet. So I want some pure color now, down in here, and then I want the two to blend it together. Let's just kind of come in there. When I get close to this other tree, I now need to think about this shape of this tree. So I'm going to use this dark color that I'm painting to shape this lighter color. So I can come in and correct any kind of shape that I've made that I don't care for. We'll just kind of do that. While I'm thinking about it, before this dries too much, I want to come in and add some water. So I want to get these two to kind of run together a little bit better. I might even drop a little more violet in there, that mix, to get them to run together. There we go. That was probably more water than I planned, but that's okay. We'll get them. And then I'm just going to pull this back down in here. Maybe I am going to go to a little royal blue now. I'm just going to bring that in down here. It's going to mix more with the green than anything. So it'll still look fairly green. And I'm just going to pull this on down. This is the tree I have decided that's in the foreground. Maybe there's a little bit that comes up there just to change that shape. There's this little bit that comes out like that. And then it comes down in here and sort of it informs how this tree looks. So now I've completely painted over my second tree. That was right in here, and that's okay. Before I do anything though, I want to come in, I want to add a little bit of a highlight before that dries too much. I'm going to grab some opera, and I'm just going to put a little hint of a color of opera right up in here. Make that just a little bit taller, just like that. And then let that run down in there. It's a little hard to see. Let me see if I can zoom back in on that. There we go. So that takes that violet and adds this little highlight of color, which then I want to try and force to run down more. Let's see. Try and get this lit a little better. But yeah, you can see, I mean, it's not super, it's not super bright, at least not on screen. But it's just enough of that to kind of add just an interesting little variation. I could even come in here with a little more of the violet and drop that in here. So that runs down. I like what's going on here with the green kind of running into that blue. Okay, so, and I'm not worried that the top of my tree looks purple. I like that. So I'm going to come in. I think I'm going to do my second tree right here, and then maybe I'll have another third one next to it. So I'm going to start with a little, I think in this case, I'm going to use a little royal blue first. So I'm just going to come in with the royal blue. I'm basically picking it up off my palette right now. Nothing super exciting that you're missing. And I'm just going to bring that in where I had this third tree. Right in here. I kind of like that shape, so we'll just kind of mimic that. And you can see, again, just using the tip of my brush, I'm just kind of scribbling little tree kind of shapes. That's all this is just kind of deciding, okay, this is going to be a tree. And if it looks like it and seems like it, then it must be it. I'm going to now switch over to the Hooker's Green Royal Blue mix, which I need to mix just a skosh more. There we go. Every time, also just as a reminder, now my light's in the way. Let's see. As I mix this, I'm mixing the green here. When I pick it up, I'm gonna just remember to roll your brush so you get that nice point back in there. Okay, so hopefully this is still wet because I have a tendency to talk a fair amount. And if it runs into that tree, it's okay. These will kind of blend together. Hopefully this one will be a little bit darker than that one, but it's okay if they run together. We're not too worried about that. So we'll just kind of come down here, and now I get to kind of sculpt how I want this tree to be. Maybe this comes down, this dark comes way down into there, and then I have that kind of shape there. Okay. Yeah, and I can even pull some of that dark green, back into here. So maybe that ends up looking like like this tree's back behind it. Kind of like what's happening there. I do want a little bit of a highlight in this one. So again, I'm going to grab a little opera. Let's see, I didn't really clean my brush out very well. Let me do that. Grab a little of that. The problem is I have just a wee bit too much water in my opera. So I'm mostly getting water. And I'm just going to kind of pull that in just a little bit. The blue dried on me a little bit, but that's okay. We'll just kind of pull it down into there, and then it will start running. And if I grab just a little bit more water, and this one doesn't need to run, it doesn't need to be quite as, light as that one, because it's in the background. I just want a little hint of something going on there. And again, some of this will disappear when I paint my sky, and that's okay too. Just get that to run down into there. Sometimes I can go in and add just a little opera on top. It's hard to see on screen, but it really is kind of running down into there. It still looks a little dark, but I like the top of the tree being a little bit lighter. That's working all right for me. And so then we'll do this third tree. And I've decided that the third tree needs to be a little bit taller than this tree, but not quite as tall as that one. I didn't want it to go bump, bump, bump. I'm going to go back to the violet because this one is going to be back in the background a little bit more. So I'm just going to use the violet for now. And this one is going to be it looks like it's starting as darker. That actually, you know what? This one's going to be taller. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it taller. And you can see I can just change my mind. it's going to go off the top of the page, and that's fine. I want to make it taller than that one. In fact, I'm just going to keep kind of fiddling. It's easier for me if I can kind of see the top and then paint into it. So I do that. Sometimes I'll paint over the tape a little bit. Let's go into that blue. Coming down into there. I think this one may end up in front of that one too. So maybe these two trees are kind of the tall, you know, or not necessarily taller than the other one. I mean, they all may be about the same height, but because they're probably all about the same age. But these two are kind of forward of that one. So that's why that one looks lower. And then let's come in with some of the green. I need way more water in my brush because I got a lot of water on my paper. And again, just coming in, kind of sculpting the top of this tree, making it an interesting shape. And I'm not going to worry too much. Let's see. I'm going to drop a little of the green up in here just because. And let's see if we can't get this to kind of run through there. I like the texture that happens when I get the water to run through this tree. It adds an interesting, you know, kind of texture to it. The cool thing about this technique is I can go back in and add some darks on top of this to kind of build up that texture. And this one, I'm not going to worry about the pink kind of running down in there. I don't really, you know, it's off the top of the page, so I'm not gonna fiddle with that. Grab a little more violet and let that run down into the blue, like so. Yeah. So once I pull that tape off, you know, that the top of that tree will disappear, and that'll just be under the mat, so it won't matter. And once I do a little bit of blue up there, the fact that the tree, I just needed the trees to be different. I don't like this. There we go. Felt a little weird right there. So I just added a little streak of paint, and that was it. Maybe pull out a little bit there. All I'm doing is adding little lacy little bits to the side of the tree, just to kind of make it feel a little more like a pine tree. But yeah, so you can see now that really pushes these forward, which then really push this stuff forward. And as we add a little more dark to these, the deciduous trees up front, let me get this up a little higher so we can see the whole painting. But you can see how it's starting to push everything forward. As we add dark, like a dark shadow here, right now, this is a little confusing what's going on here. This is fighting with each other. That, you know, the dark shadow that's going to be on here will help push this wall back, and this will pop forward as well. Same with here. This is going to be fighting with it right now, but we're going to add some dark shadow later once we've done this, once we've done the door and stuff. And same with over here, we'll add shadow. So that'll push this forward and that wall back. Yeah. So any questions or concerns, problems? We're right at 9:06. I do remember, did anybody want me to look at their painting from last week? I'll plop mine on there. You can see if I zoom in, you can kind of see, I mean, really they're just little blobs of paint, but I added like 3 little ducks kind of swimming along there. You know, that again, that falls into the, if it kind of looks like it, seems like it, then it must be it. I did add just a wee bit more dark in a few spots. I kind of built up a little more texture where I'd lifted out a bunch. and added a little bit more dark. I did add a little more dark here as well. And then a few more kind of dark streaks in the water. I think I even added a little opera right in here that I didn't have, just to kind of to make it, yeah, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it helped it or not, but I liked it. So that's where, did anybody want me to look at theirs? It's
Not
okay.
finished yet.
Not finished yet. Yeah. That's cool. And at any, say that again.
I'm still working on mine too. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. At any point, you know, later in the class, if you want me to take a look at something, you know, just let me know. And at the end of class, we'll take a look at it. But I guess then for now, I guess that's it for tonight. Hopefully you guys, let me, what am I looking for? Here we go. Wait, did I? That's what I'm looking for. Here we go. Yeah, I guess with that, I'll wish everybody a good week and a good weekend. And like I told Kathy when she was signing off, I'm going to try and get this posted tomorrow. So if you guys want, you can watch it over the weekend if you have time, or whatever. I know. Like, she likes to paint on Saturdays, and that's why I felt really bad that I had not gotten this posted before before the holiday. I don't know what happened to me. It just got away from me. My last day down in Gallup was Friday, and that it ended up kind of bleeding into Saturday. So trying to finish everything up for them.
Well, we'll see you again on Monday.
See you Monday. Thanks, Michael.
Oh, you're welcome. So you guys have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.